Okay, let's start with what I am calling the Orange Rebellion, which is the foundational era from 2005 to 2011 that established Haley's visual strategy and proved that authentic rebellion could coexist with astute career planning. The mid 2000s scene was a completely different place from what we know now. This was peak MySpace era, where your top eight friends determined your social status, and everyone was desperately trying to get their hands on the new iPod Nano. The rock landscape was dominated by bands like Green Day and Blink 182, who'd proven that punk sensibilities could coexist with mainstream success, but the design was very much still dude centric. Enter the 16-year-old firecracker from Franklin, Tennessee, who'd somehow convinced her parents to let her join a band with a bunch of slightly older dudes she'd met through local music connections. As the story goes, Jeremy Davis and Josh Farrow had been playing together for a minute, heard about this girl with serious vocal chops, and asked her to come jam. What they found was someone with the technical skills to match their ambition and the natural charisma to become their focal point. But the industry's relationship with young female performers in 2005 was, well, complicated. This was Britney and Christina territory where teen girls in music were expected to either be wholesome role models or carefully manufactured rebels. The rock world wasn't much better. Female musicians were often relegated to either indie rock, manic pixie dream girls like Jenny Lewis or pop punk princess archetypes like Avril Lavigne. Haley's signature Orange Revolution wasn't just a scene kid who stumbled across a tube of manic panic hellfire dye. It was an intentional protest against all the misguided expectations the industry had for teen girls in music. The vibrant, impossible to ignore shade screamed, "I don't belong here," and that's exactly the point. While other young women were trying to fit into pre existing categories, she chose to stand out violently. The shade itself was pure genius. Orange is the most psychologically stimulating hue in the spectrum. It demands attention without the aggression of red or the caution of yellow. It's the pigment of construction zones and traffic cones and things that you literally cannot ignore. When Haley walked into a room full of kids with singed straight black locks, she became the only person your eyes could focus on. But the strategic brilliance goes deeper than just standing out. Orange became Haley's visual anchor during Paramore's most foundational period, creating consistency even as everything else around their sound and image evolved. All We Know Is Falling established their emotional intensity, but it was Riot in 2007 that launched them into the stratosphere. And through both albums, that distinctive shade remained constant. Her tonal North Star, while the band experimented with everything from traditional punk aggression to more melodic pop sensibilities. When Decode landed on the Twilight soundtrack in 2008, Paramore wasn't just another band contributing to a random movie compilation. They were a group with that girl with the unforgettable tangerine mane. That song became their biggest hit to date, and suddenly that chromatic choice translated into recognizable branding that helped them stand out in a soundtrack filled with established artists. During this period, her palette did evolve strategically. She experimented with darker cherry red variations, especially around this Decode era, but always within the warm spectrum that had become her signature. It was sort of like watching a master painter work within a specific family of shades. Enough variation to keep things exciting, but consistent enough to maintain visual identity. The Orange era also coincided with Paramore's transition from scrappy underdogs to legitimate rock stars, and Haley's chromatic consistency provided stability during a period of massive change. They were teenagers figuring out fame in real time, dealing with tour schedules that would exhaust adults and industry pressures that would crush, crush, crush. Get it? Most people twice their age. But fans always knew what to expect visually, even as their sound matured and their personalities developed. What made this strategy so effective was how it worked on multiple levels simultaneously. Casual observers saw a distinctive look that made Hayley instantly recognizable in press photos and music videos. Dedicated fans began associating specific variations with different creative periods. The brighter copper tones during the riot sessions versus the deeper auburn shades during more introspective twilight moments. She was unconsciously training her audience to read visual cues as artistic indicators. But beneath the surface, the band dynamics were becoming increasingly complex. What fans didn't know, but always suspected, was that Haley and lead guitarist Josh Farrow had developed a romantic relationship that added layers of personal tension to their creative collaboration. Here was a teenage frontwoman navigating not just fame and industry pressure, but also a romantic relationship with her bandmate. And all this while maintaining the chromatic identity that had become central to Paramore's brand. By 2009, as they prepared to release Brand New Eyes, the orange had become so synonymous with Hayley Williams that any variation felt newsworthy to fans. When she occasionally experimented with slightly different tones, it generated speculation about the band's creative direction. She had accidentally created a feedback loop where her personal grooming choices became content for fan communities to analyze and discuss. The Orange Rebellion wasn't just about establishing visual identity, it was about claiming creative control in an industry that rarely gives female musicians agency over their own image. While other young artists were having their looks dictated by stylists and label executives, Haley was making bold choices that reflected her actual personality and artistic vision. But perhaps most importantly, this orange era established the psychological framework that would define her entire career approach. Fans learned to associate her chromatic evolution with creative evolution, setting up expectations that would serve her well during future reinventions. She was building trust through consistency, proving that change could be exciting instead of threatening when handled intentionally. As 2011 approached, Haley had accomplished something completely remarkable. She had created a visual identity so strong that it had become inseparable from Paramore's brand recognition, while simultaneously training her audience to expect and embrace evolution. She'd proven that a teen girl could control her own narrative in an industry designed to control her. The Orange Rebellion had been a complete success, but success, as it turns out, was about to become the least of her problems. Because just as fans had learned to trust her visual consistency, everything was about to fall apart. The romantic relationship with Josh was crumbling. Band members were preparing to quit. The rumors about the real story behind Paramore's success were threatening to destroy everything they'd built. When your world is imploding, sometimes the only response is to embrace the chaos completely. And that's exactly what Haley's hair was about to do.